Well, y'all, I am sorry to say, but the movie theaters might actually be dying. The movie theater experience might actually be cooked because Netflix is set to acquire Warner Brothers for $82.7 billion. And this has been the deal. This has been the deal that's been selected. So how did we get here? No, seriously, how did we get here, guys? What happened? What happened? No, in all seriousness. All right, so here's the deal. Warner Brothers is one of the oldest studios in Hollywood, one of the oldest still running studios. Warner Brothers was one of the big three back in the foundational age of cinema. They have been around for over 100 years, and it has not been an easy 100 years, especially on this side of the century. So Warner Brothers has gone through many failed mergers and acquisitions, and it's been through it. Warner Brothers has been through it. Just in my lifetime, I can remember the Time Warner changeover. I can remember the AT&T Warner. Now, of course, we have Warner Brothers Discovery, the most recent. I feel like there was another one. AOL? Warner AOL. I think that happened for a while. Frankly, Warner Brothers is a very well-established, rank in the world of cinema, but it also is just not run well as a business, let's be frank. On top of all these failed mergers and being tossed around through different owners, Warner Brothers has inherited a massive amount of debt, and the movie making business is not a very good business to be in if you want to be a profitable industry. So Warner Brothers, although they have had an incredible year, and we've talked about this on stream before, that Warner Brothers did have some of the best releases, Superman, Weapons, Sinners, the Minecraft movie, so many different wins. F1, I think, was Warner Brothers as well. So many different wins in the movie theater, but it's still not enough, because if you keep consistently spending a bunch of money and not earning that money back, or being indebted to other companies, you just can't run. So the latest attempt to try and save Warner Brothers was Discovery, and Discovery, from the Discovery Channel, yes, that Discovery, they acquired Warner Brothers from AT&T, who tried to get into the entertainment world. And the best thing to come out of the AT&T years is the fact that my HBO Max is included in my internet bill until I move. But Discovery bought Warner Brothers. Really, they bought Warner Brothers to try and get a leg up in the streaming race. Discovery had a Discovery Plus streaming service, which was not doing well at all. But buying HBO and HBO Max, which then became Max, which then became HBO Max again, gave them the opportunity to really beef up their library and really get in the streaming game. And frankly, it did kind of work out for them. It got them through the post-pandemic era, and they did greenlight a bunch of movies, but famously, it did also put the very contentious David Zaslav in charge of Warner Brothers, who went on to acknowledge the fact that Warner was a company that was bleeding cash, and he started what is the very unfortunate trend of basically canceling films for tax write-offs. And if a film is not released, if a film is basically disappeared, like what happened to the Scooby-Doo animated movie Scoob, like what happened to the Batgirl movie, if those movies are disappeared, essentially, you can claim them for a tax write-off, and all your production money that you put into it will just basically disappear, and you get that money back from the government because you can claim it as a loss. But that's not enough. It wasn't enough to save the company, and even this generational run that they've had this past year has not pulled them out of the dirt. And so Discovery made the announcement earlier this year that they were going to unmerge with Warner Brothers. They were going to separate from the company, and they weren't initially saying that they were open for bids, but obviously a lot of companies were lining up. Famously, Netflix, Paramount, who are the big two who are still in the race. But even, companies like NBC Universal considered it. Other interests chimed in here and there. Rumor has it that maybe Disney even considered it for a moment, but Disney would probably not be able to get another massive acquisition through the FTC following the 20th Century acquisition. All that to be said, where are we today? Well, last week on December 5th, Netflix announced that they had closed a deal with Warner Brothers to basically acquire the Warner Brothers of Warner Brothers Discovery. So they only want to buy Warner Brothers Studios, their distribution arm, and their streaming arm. So they would acquire Warner Brothers, they would acquire HBO and HBO Max and all of those subsidiaries, and Discovery Global would remain. So that is the big takeaway of the Netflix acquisition. The way that the money is there, technically they are going to absolve $10 billion worth of Warner's debt. And then the other remaining $72 billion will be to pay out through the shareholders through a mix of cash and stock options in Netflix. It's important to make those distinctions. I know it's going over my head a little bit too, but we're going to come back around to that. So what is the initial reaction? Not great. Let's be honest. Most folks are not excited for this. Netflix is contentious, especially because the person running Netflix is Ted Sarandos. Ted Sarandos, who is not the most favored person in all of Hollywood. Hello. Yes, I use Archive because I don't want to pay for a Bloomberg subscription. Ted Sarandos is a very contentious person in Hollywood. Yes, he is responsible for a lot of Netflix's success. And yes, because of Netflix's success, we have had some incredible things. I like Stranger Things, right? I'm a fan of Stranger Things. I love that Guillermo del Toro got to make a Frankenstein movie. And, there's a lot of different shows and movies and careers and creatives that have been uplifted by Netflix. But Ted Sarandos, at the end of the day, is not an artist. He is a tech executive. And he runs his company like a tech executive would. So Ted Sarandos basically has been very coy for the longest time about whether or not Netflix really wanted to get into Warner Brothers, but clearly this was his goal from the get-go. So this article came out from Bloomberg, basically revealing that Ted Sarandos, back in November, actually held a meeting with President Donald Trump to try and carry favor in this conversation about Netflix possibly purchasing Warner Brothers. They talked about a handful of different things, but important things to note. Paramount just went through a massive merger with Skydance, which was basically fast-tracked through the legal proceedings, all because the Ellison family, a very contentious billionaire family who happens to be very friendly with Donald Trump personally and the Trump administration, they have an interest in also acquiring Warner Brothers. And so Ted Sarandos was happy to go and, if you want to call it kiss the ring, bend the knee, whatever it may be, and have a conversation with Donald Trump, likely about how possible it would be for Netflix to go through with this meeting, or with this purchase. According to insiders, Trump said in his meeting with Sarandos that Warner Brothers should go to the highest bidder. And so that's interesting to consider, thinking about some of the things that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But Trump, when asked about it this week after the decision had been announced that Netflix will be purchasing Warner Brothers, he said it's a big market share. It could be a problem. And he will be involved with the decision. He said that's got to go through a process and we'll see what's happened. Netflix is a great company and they've done a phenomenal job, but then he did say he will be involved. Mr. David Zaslav is estimated to still be a part of the company following everything that happens. And then this article does also talk about the Ellisons and their deal with Trump and their happiness with Trump. But important to understand here, all of this matters. All of this matters. I'm painting you the full picture. So Ted Sarandos of Netflix meets with Donald Trump and he's like, hey, so Netflix wants to buy Warner Brothers. And Donald Trump says, oh, well, you know, whoever gives the most money is going to be the winner. Meanwhile, the Ellisons and Skydance-Paramount have been like, hey, Donnie dude, my guy. What happened? I thought we had this deal. So Netflix goes out after they make the announcement. They're like, hey, don't worry. We're going to be fine. There's so many cool things we're going to do. So naturally, let me take a moment because I am a nerd and I know you are nerds too. One of the things that Netflix is really excited about is all of the different intellectual properties that Warner Brothers owns. So we mentioned that Warner Brothers has been around for 100 years. That includes so many different things and so many different franchises that Warner Brothers owns. To mention a few, the Harry Potter franchise, the theatrical rights to any Lord of the Rings movies, the entirety of DC Comics and DC Studios. So many more. But those are just a few off rip. And so there's a lot of really good opportunity, but also a lot of people nervous. So for my nerds out there regarding DC Studios, it is safe to say we're in good hands here. So this article did point out that on December 4th, the day before the official announcement came through, David Zaslav, the current CEO of Warner Discovery, was saying, the work of James and Peter, their creative vision, it's compelling and a great economic return. There's no storytelling content that we have that provides a bigger palette than DC, and there's nobody around right now who can tell these stories with the same imagination and excitement. So, the day before the deal closed, where David Zaslav is very involved, he is saying nobody could do it better than James Gunn. So, we're probably going to be fine. We're probably still going to get to see the vision play out for DC. Zaslav said the DC universe is big enough and strong enough that it should be available on all platforms. Interesting. Why do you think he said that? HBO Max? Sure. Movie theaters? Sure. Netflix? There are some stories that are important to be told in theaters around the world, and some stories that are important to be told as series. So I am certain those were conversations that were had with Netflix. Ted Sarandos, when talking to shareholders after the announcement was made, he talked about the DC universe and how things like The Penguin were great television, but the tentpole movies are great in the movie theaters. And then, they said the communal theatrical experience is something, or this was James Gunn speaking on everything that happened. Communal theatrical experience is something that is incredibly important and remarkably well suited to our big spectacle films. So all in all, I think we can assume that DC is going to be okay. But let's get back to whether or not everything else is going to be okay. So Ted Sarandos very contentiously said in that shareholder call and in talking to reporters that in his mind, it is a more consumer-friendly opinion to shorten the theatrical window, and that is a vision that he has for Warner Brothers, that he wants to remain in theatrical distribution. However, he believes it's more consumer-friendly for movies to come out of theaters quicker and into people's homes. Obviously, a lot of people took that the wrong way. Every single major union in the entertainment industry spoke out. The WGA, the DGA, SAG-AFTRA, literally everyone came out and was like, yo, what the fuck? Like, no, we don't want this. Please stop this. Obviously, because streaming has been such a complicated part of contract negotiations in the entertainment industry. The streaming model, a lot of people have attributed to what has happened regarding everything that's happened with the job market, with the just everything. The streaming model's to blame for so much that's gone wrong. And frankly, theatrical distribution is not just the best for the artistic intention of folks and the communal experience for folks, but it is also where a lot of these artists and a lot of these people make their money. And yes, I have seen a lot of TikTok edits of compilations of people being very frustrated with Ted Sarandis' statements, as well as reminding people about the theatrical experience. It's not lost on me that the Russo brothers posted the announcement about Avengers Endgame going back to movie theaters by posting the clip of people screaming in the movie theater, being like, yeah, no, we know the movie theater is the best place for a lot of this to happen. That being said, Mr. Ted did take a couple steps backwards, and he talked about, in this transaction we pick up 3 businesses we're not currently in. We have no redundancies currently. We're deeply committed to releasing movies exactly the way they would release those movies today. The theatrical business, we talked a lot about in past wanting to do it because we've never been in that business. When this deal closes, we are in that business and we're going to do it. So it sounds like he's saying, we're not touching the theatrical arm. We're still sticking to the theatrical arm. And the way he said it here, if we did this deal 2 years ago, all those movies we saw this year do so well for Warner Brothers would have been released in theaters the same ways. Talking about Minecraft, Superman, Weapons, Sinners, things like that. These movies will be released on Netflix through theaters the way Warner Brothers did it before, but with the Warner Brothers operating entity, it's really important the way they create and the way they drive value. We didn't buy this company to destroy that value. So I think that was a nice way to walk back the statements, but I don't think it takes, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, Mr. Ted. Where do we go from here? Well, Paramount, the Ellisons, are still very, very, very motivated, and in fact, the update as of today is that Paramount is now launching a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, which is crazy. So, folks, what is a hostile takeover? Welcome to Business 101 with Jupigorg. The guy who has a film degree is going to try and explain how a corporate hostile takeover works. Okay. Let me try and simplify this as easily as I can. Y'all remember what happened with Twitter? Y'all remember what Elon Musk did with Twitter? When he was like, I could do this better. Your company's valued at this because it's really bad. I'm gonna buy your shares for $69,420 or $420.69. I can't remember which one it was. Which is significantly higher valued than what the company is valued at. So when something like that happens, when an entity comes in and says, I will buy your company at significantly higher than what it's worth, when you are a company that's made up of shareholders, and shareholders would be the ones to receive the payout, they have the ability to vote and say, hey, I would like that amount of money. So that's what happened with Twitter, right? Elon Musk said, I'll buy your company for this much. And then the shareholders were like, yeah, we'll take your deal. And then the board was like, yeah, we'll take that deal. And then he had to make that deal. So what is Paramount trying to do here? Well, if you remember the big shiny number, 82.7 billion, what Netflix agreed to, Paramount is coming in and saying, hey, for 108 billion, we will buy the cart and the horse. Paramount Skydance is trying to acquire not just Warner Brothers, but the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount proposed transaction is for the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery, including their TV business, which includes CNN, TBS, TNT, and other networks. This is crazy. On top of the fact that Skydance and Paramount own CBS, and that's a big thing. They now are also bidding for CNN. So much wrong there. So much wrong. God, this would also be terrible. Yeah, actually, I would argue this could be worse. David Ellison as proof. So what else is going on here? So Paramount's offer is an all-cash offer. So remember how we mentioned that Netflix was doing a combined offer of straight up cash and stock value and everything? Paramount says, money on the table, $108.4 billion. So part of their argument too is like, you don't have to deal with this volatile and complex structure. You know, a trade in share value, Netflix value is not a liquid asset that could go either way. This is an all cash offer, which is $108.4 billion. It's crazy. Paramount's statement here: Paramount's strategically and financially compelling offer to the WBD's shareholders provides a superior alternative to the Netflix transaction, which offers inferior and uncertain value and exposes shareholders to a protracted multi-jurisdictional regulatory clearance process with an uncertain outcome, along with a complex and volatile mix of equity and cash. How we doing? How we doing, chat? How we doing, chat? Are we still here? Are we still here? Are we still here? Everyone close Robinhood. Everyone log off of public. I know that we're all big money heads here. I know that we're all finance bros. Okay, so what does this mean? Paramount? This part. Barry Princess, I saw you in chat saying two evils, right? Let's just think about where this money comes from, right? Let's think about... I'm laughing at your message. Let's just think about where this money comes from. $108.4 billion. And let's be clear, 108.4, that's 108 billion, $400 million. Where does that money come from? Well, it comes from Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, David's papa. It comes from Redbird Capital Partners. And, oh, what's this? Paramount's latest offer also includes backing from the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. What are we doing? On top of commitments from Bank of America, Citibank, Apollo Global Management, but Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi are trying to buy Warner Brothers? Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi are partnering with the Ellisons, who are Donald Trump's personal friends, to buy another massive media arm in the United States? What the fuck are we talking about? Is this real life? This is a movie studio. These are the Harry Potter motherfuckers. We're talking about HBO. What does Abu Dhabi want with Game of Thrones? What does Saudi Arabia want with the chair company? This feels like real life Succession. They would own Succession too. What is happening? Cut the cameras. Yeah, so Ellison previously submitted 3 bids for Warner Brothers Discovery, and all of them were rejected. This latest offer is also what was their last offer on December 1st. So this is an offer that Warner Brothers Discovery already had and already rejected in favor of the Netflix acquisition. David Ellison said, "The Warner shareholders deserve an opportunity to consider our superior all-cash offer. Our public offer, which is on the same terms we provided Warner Bros. Discovery, the board of directors in private, provides superior value and more certain and quicker paths to completion." That part is scary to me. Why would this be a quicker path to completion? Yes, I understand that they would be buying the entire Warner Brothers Discovery, which would be a little easier than what Netflix is trying to do, which is separate Warner Brothers and separate HBO and the streaming arm Well, why would it be easier? Why is David Ellison so confident that it would be easier to take the entirety of the company when they already own CBS News and they'd be buying CNN, when they already own Paramount Plus and they'd be buying HBO Max, when they already own Paramount Pictures, which is like the second oldest studio working in Hollywood? Why that'd be okay buying Warner Brothers? What does he know that we don't? You know? So Warner Brothers is going to consider it. The board of directors said that they're going to consider the bid and they're going to give it its due diligence. They did announce that they'll carefully review it. We will review and consider Paramount Skydance offer in accordance with the terms of the Netflix agreement, and the board of directors will advise shareholders of their recommendation within 10 business days. So why does Skydance-Paramount want Warner Discovery so bad that they're willing to do this messy, hostile takeover, that they're willing to take money from the Saudi government? Well, let's talk about what's happened to Paramount. Let's talk about what's been happening to Paramount Skydance ever since his acquisition. Well, basically, in short, we're trying to bring the bro back to Hollywood. We're trying to put the man back in the movie man. Look, this article came out from the Hollywood Reporter. I'm not going to do a play-by-play by it. I would highly recommend reading this entire article by Pamela McClintock. Some great interviews and some great highlights here. But in short, in summary, the Ellisons and David Ellison in particular is committed to making Skydance-Paramount the anti-woke studio of Hollywood. Paramount was among the first to kill DEI policies, the first to push back against anti-Israel sentiments, willing to empower once canceled male executives and give them jobs. You know, we recently heard about, or we'll talk about this in Movie News Monday here, Brett Ratner, famous sexual predator Brett Ratner is back at Paramount making movies. Paramount was quick to swoop up John Lasseter after he was, Me Too'd out of Disney. They signed a first look deal with Will Smith after the slap happened. They're making a movie with Johnny Depp after his entire thing happened. Like they're saying, we don't care. We don't care. Everybody's in. Which is yucky, but all things to say, they're really changing the release schedule and the promise of what Paramount movies are. The business mogul, the Ellison, complains that the news business has been taken over by coastal elites who are out of touch with the American public. And so they're greenlighting movies like Call of Duty by Taylor Sheridan and a James Mangold, Timmy Chalamet Western, a motocross movie, and a Western with Brandon Sklenar. And they're canceling movies. They're canceling movies that sound a little bit more feminine. An Eloise film adaptation of the Kay Thompson's children's series was sold to Netflix quietly. The Goldberg and Bernstein regime also scrapped Winter Games, a romantic drama starring Miles Teller. They scrapped Victor and Sam's Day Off, which was going to be a spin-off of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They scrapped Colin Trevorrow's Area 51 movie. They're canceling movies left and right that don't fit this bro agenda. And they're also prioritizing movies that are safe franchises with everything that's going to be happening with the Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies and everything like that. Paramount's just trying to get to safe 15 movies a year, but bringing back the male ego, I suppose. So, folks, where do we go from here, huh? Where do we go from here? What happens now? Well, look. It's going to happen. Warner Brothers is going to be purchased. There's not a world in which Warner Brothers remains, which is really, really sad. It's sad that we're going to have to go through another one of these. And it's kind of scary that this feels really consequential in whichever direction we go. In one side, the Netflix acquisition could mean some really tough things in the new complicated world we live in that is the streaming era. This means that production cycles could get longer, that series could get more complicated, that the release window between theatrical release and home release are going to get shorter, that smaller releases are going to continue to happen where people won't be able to see Knives Out in theaters, or people who miss Superman aren't going to get a chance to see it in theaters if they go on vacation at the wrong time. Things like that. It's very possible that this means even more complicated deals and even more complicated negotiation for SAG-AFTRA, for the DGA, for the WGA. And ultimately, it is consolidation of studios. It means if you are somebody who has worked with Netflix in the past and whether it is you tried to sell them a movie and they said this isn't right for Netflix, or you pitched them a show, or your show got canceled at Netflix or anything like that, you are now losing an entire other company, an entire other competitor that you could go to. If you sell a movie to Netflix and then they go, actually, now we don't want it, you now no longer will be able to go to Warner Brothers to try again, right? Like, those are the different things that could happen. On the other side of things, if Paramount is able to go in on this hostile takeover and Paramount is able to win, it's not just the risk of consolidation of studios, which already is a bad thing. When Skydance and Paramount merged earlier this year, hundreds and hundreds of people lost their jobs. Their goal was thousands of people to lose their jobs. They are not shy to cut movies. They are already not shy to cancel projects. So many different artists and so many different voices are going to be shut down from someone who, frankly, is just trying to buddy up with this little dude over here. And somebody who has clearly a very personal agenda, a very toxic agenda of the type of content that needs to be made. And not to mention the really weird sketchiness of it. Why does the Saudi government want to have stake in CNN, what is considered to be one of the larger left-leaning mainstream media arms? Why does Qatar want to own Warner Brothers Pictures, who makes movies like Superman that are, low-key a little bit critical about Middle Eastern conflicts, right? Why does Abu Dhabi care what happens in the Warner Brothers movies that come out? Why do they have an interest in Harry Potter? Why do they care about HBO? It's weird. It's confusing. So I'm strangely finding myself having to root for Netflix in this case. But I'm sad that this is where I'm at. I'm sad that this will mean that people will lose their jobs. I'm sad that this could mean that movies that could have a life in theaters won't have a life in theaters. And I'm sad, chat, that exactly like you're saying, I'm having to pick a lesser of two evils. We will see. We will see. I try and preach optimism as often as I can here on this stream, and we haven't seen anything happen yet. It is promising that Ted Sarandos walked back a lot of the statements that he initially made. It is promising that some of the things that, really get me excited right now, like DC Studios, are being committed to stay the way that they are. But all in all, this is just a sad time and a sad state of the entertainment industry. So do me a favor, go watch some movies in the theaters this holiday season if you can. Just try and remember what makes this good. But chat, people at home, because this will likely be a YouTube video, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about this entire ordeal? What are you concerned about? What are you excited about? Like, are you happy to maybe see some of these changes? Would you be? I don't know. I don't know. But I want to know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe to all the places. Thank you for watching. If you want to watch live, come watch us live on the stream. And if you're here live right now, hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Did you see Ellison's text to Zaslav? What? No? Wait, I just opened Twitter. Paramount CEO David Ellison sent a text to David Zaslav after they made a hostile takeover bid. David, I appreciate you're underwater today, so I wanted to send you a quick text. No, despite the noise of the last 24 hours, I have nothing but respect and admiration for you and the company. It would be the honor of a lifetime to be your partner and to be the owner of these iconic assets. If we have the privilege to work together, you will see that my father and I are the people you had dinner with. Ew. You know what? That reads to me what I want to say will get me banned. Don't say it, Barry. Don't say it. This reads to me like, this is so messy. This is so bad. You know what this is? This feels to me like they were having a business meeting and it wasn't going well. And Zaslav said, David, this is not the man I had dinner with the other day. And I'm not taking your money. This is crazy. Thank you for calling this out. Holy, they want each other so bad. Ew. Dude, why is the billionaire dropping his daddy in these business texts? I'm sorry. My father and I. It will be a privilege to work with my father and I. My papa. Let's get into Movie News Monday. Because, guys, if you could believe it, we talked about the Golden Globes. We talked about Netflix, Warner Brothers. We still have an entire set of Movie News Monday to talk about. There's still so much more to come.